The late afternoon sun, a buttery wash of gold, streamed through the large bay window of the living room, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and settling gently on the worn rug. In the center of this sun-drenched patch lay Leo, a magnificent German shepherd, his sable fur gleaming, his powerful body stretched out in a state of profound slumber. But it wasn't just the dog that captivated the attention of young Liam. It was what he was sleeping with, nestled between Leo's large paws. Tucked securely against his chest was a pair of old, scuffed men's shoes. They were clearly well loved, their leather softened with age, the laces frayed, and the soles bearing the faint, ghostly imprints of countless journeys. To a casual observer, it was an eccentric quirk, perhaps a dog's strange attachment to a comfort item, but to 3-year-old Liam, with his wide, inquisitive blue eyes and boundless curiosity, it was a profound mystery. Liam, a whirlwind of perpetual motion and innocent inquiry, paused his elaborate train game, abandoning his wooden locomotive mid-track. He crawled closer to Leo, his movements surprisingly gentle for a child his age. He observed the dog with the intense focus only a toddler could muster. His head cocked to one side. Leo's deep, rhythmic breaths stirred the dust around the shoes. But he remained utterly still, lost in a dream world where, perhaps, those shoes held a special significance. Shoes. "Mama?" Liam finally chirped, his voice a soft question. Pulling Sarah from her perusal of an old photo album on the couch, Sarah, Liam's mother, a woman with kind eyes and an ever-present, gentle smile, looked up. She watched her son and their dog, a familiar pang of tenderness and a touch of melancholy stirring within her. "Yes, sweetie, those are Leo's special shoes," she replied. Her voice soft. She had seen this ritual countless times since they had adopted Leo 2 years ago. The dog would often seek out the shoes, meticulously arrange them, and then settle down for a nap. His nose often tucked into one of the worn pieces of leather. It was a peculiar habit, one that spoke of a deep, almost spiritual comfort the shoes provided him. Mark, Liam's father, a jovial man with a practical mind, walked in from the kitchen, a mug of coffee in hand. He paused, observing the scene, a faint frown creasing his brow. "Still with those old things, huh?" "Leo?" he murmured, more to himself than to the dog. Mark loved Leo, truly, but the dog's almost obsessive attachment to the decrepit footwear had always puzzled him. He often wondered if it was just some odd canine neurosis from his past life before the shelter. It's more than just a habit. "Mark?" Sarah said, a thoughtful expression on her face. "He looks different when he's with them. More peaceful, almost sad. Like they remind him of something." She remembered the shelter's intake notes. Found alone, severely neglected, carrying a pair of old men's shoes. They had tried to take the shoes away for cleaning, but Leo had become unusually agitated, even aggressive. A stark contrast to his normally placid demeanor. So, they had let him keep them. Liam, meanwhile, had reached out a tentative hand, his chubby fingers brushing against the worn leather. Leo's ear twitched, but he didn't stir. Liam giggled, fascinated by the texture, the intricate lacing. He often tried to get Leo to play, to chase him with a ball, but when it came to these shoes, Leo was always protective, almost reverent. It was a line Liam instinctively knew not to cross when Leo was awake. Sarah got up and walked over. Kneeling beside Liam, she gently ruffled his hair. "They were with Leo when he was found." "Honey," she explained, trying to distill a complex backstory into terms a 3-year-old could grasp. "They're very special to him." She ran her hand over Leo's soft fur, Feeling the warmth of his sleeping body, there was an unspoken story in those shoes, a narrative of loss and enduring loyalty that tugged at her heart. She often wondered about Leo's previous owner. The person whose shoes these once were? Had they been kind? Why had Leo been abandoned? The mysteries surrounding the gentle giant were many, but the love he gave was undeniable. As the sun began to dip lower, casting longer shadows across the room, Leo stirred. He blinked open his eyes, a flicker of awareness returning to them. He stretched, a deep, satisfied sigh escaping him. And then, with practiced ease, he nudged the shoes closer, resting his chin on them, his gaze, soft and intelligent, met Liam's. It was a look of profound contentment, a quiet acknowledgement of the boy's curious presence. For Liam, it was a silent invitation into Leo's world, a world where old shoes held untold stories, and where a deep, unbreakable bond was slowly, unconsciously, being forged between a boy and his gentle, enigmatic dog. This seemingly innocent ritual was far more than a peculiar habit. It was the first subtle thread in a tapestry of loyalty, memory, and a buried truth that was about to unravel. As the golden light of the late afternoon faded, casting long, melancholic shadows across the living room floor, Leo remained nestled with his cherished old shoes. To Sarah and Mark, it was a peculiar, endearing habit. But to Leo, in the quiet depths of his canine consciousness, those shoes were far more than mere objects. They were anchors, tangible fragments of a past that flickered in his dreams like an old, faded film reel, sometimes. When the house was quiet and the scent of rain on dry earth drifted through the open window, a particular memory would surface. It was a kind hand, strong yet gentle, ruffling the fur behind his ears. A deep, resonant voice, filled with laughter, whispering his name. Not Leo then, but another name. Long lost to the echo of time. And always, always, the distinct smell of those very shoes, leather and earth and something uniquely human. Comforting and safe. He remembered warmth, the feeling of a sturdy chest to lean against, the rhythmic thump of a heart. He remembered boundless fields, the wind whipping through his fur as he chased a thrown stick, and the joyous shouts of a boy. These were not clear, linear recollections, but rather sensory bursts, the feel of soft grass beneath his paws, the taste of a favored treat, the sound of a particular whistle. And then, a jarring shift. The warmth would turn cold. The laughter would become a shout. Then a muffled cry. The kind hand would disappear, replaced by rough, unfamiliar grabs. The scent of home, of safety, would be overwhelmed by the stench of fear, of something acrid and metallic. He would remember darkness, a sudden, terrifying jolt, and the agonizing wrench as a familiar world was ripped away. The shoes, always the shoes, were the last tangible link. He had clung to them, instinctively, perhaps even desperately. When the world had fractured around him, they carried the lingering scent of that lost warmth, that reassuring presence when he was found, starved and terrified, huddled in a ditch on the outskirts of town. The shoes were his only possession, his silent testament to a life brutally interrupted. The shelter staff, initially bewildered by his fierce protection of the worn footwear, had quickly learned not to separate him from them. He would whimper, whine, and refuse to eat until they were returned, even now, 2 years into his loving adoption by Sarah and Mark. A phantom ache resided deep within Leo. It wasn't physical pain, but a profound, unarticulated grief for something irrevocably lost. The shoes were his solace, his connection to a love that had vanished without a trace. He would meticulously arrange them, sometimes one under his chin, sometimes one tucked against his flank, As if trying to physically knit the past back together, Sarah, a deeply empathetic soul, often watched him, a quiet sadness blooming in her own heart. She had volunteered at the local animal shelter for years, witnessing countless tales of abandonment and resilience. But Leo's story, with his silent, almost ritualistic mourning, had always struck her as uniquely poignant. She had tried, gently, to understand his fixation. She'd researched dog behavior, read articles about canine grief, but nothing fully explained the depth of his attachment to these specific old shoes. "He's still grieving, isn't he?" she murmured to Mark one evening, after Liam was asleep and Leo was curled up. As always with his silent companions, Mark, ever the pragmatist, shrugged. "I don't know, Hunt. Maybe, or maybe it's just a comfort thing. Like a kid with a favorite blanket. He was found with them, right? Probably just associates them with safety, with the end of being alone. But it's more than that," Sarah insisted, a crease forming between her brows. "It's almost reverent, like they're sacred to him. It's not just comfort, it's remembrance. I feel like there's a whole story locked up in those shoes. A story we'll never know." She looked at Leo, whose gentle snores filled the quiet room. "Who was he with before us, Mark? What happened to them?" "Why was he alone?" Mark sighed, shaking his head. "The shelter didn't know anything, Sarah, just that he was found severely malnourished. No microchip, no collar. They tried to find his owner, put up posters, but nothing. It's a sad story, like so many others. Best not to dwell on it, but Sarah couldn't help but dwell. There was a nagging feeling, a quiet whisper in her intuition that told her Leo's past was not just a sad story, but an unfinished one. Those shoes, so ordinary yet so profoundly significant to Leo, held a secret that, unknowingly, was about to begin its slow, agonizing, but ultimately revealing journey to the surface. And it would be Liam, with his innocent curiosity, who would inadvertently nudge the first domino. The ordinary rhythm of the household was momentarily broken by a low, guttural sound, one that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. It wasn't a bark of greeting, nor a playful growl during a game of tug-of-war. This was different. This was a sound she had never heard from Leo before. A deep, unsettling rumble that vibrated with an unfamiliar intensity. Liam, ever the fearless explorer, had been playing on the floor near Leo, who was, as usual, taking his afternoon nap, his head resting squarely on the worn leather of one of his cherished shoes. The sun still dappled through the window, illuminating dust motes and creating a seemingly serene tableau. But Liam, in his innocent, unthinking curiosity, had decided this was the perfect moment to investigate the peculiar objects that so captivated his furry friend. He reached out a tiny hand, his fingers aiming for the very shoe Leo was using as a pillow. His intent was not malicious, merely exploratory, a child's desire to touch, to feel, to understand. But as his fingers grazed the scuffed leather, Leo's eyes snapped open. The deep rumble started, a warning that vibrated through the floorboards. Liam, startled, instinctively pulled his hand back, his lower lip beginning to tremble. He had never seen Leo react this way. Their German shepherd was a beacon of gentleness, a patient playmate, a warm, furry pillow. This new, almost menacing sound was utterly foreign. Sarah, who had been engrossed in a recipe on her tablet, looked up, her attention instantly drawn by the sudden shift in the room's atmosphere. Her eyes widened as she took in Leo's rigid posture, the slight raise of the fur along his spine, and the dark, unblinking intensity of his gaze fixed not on Liam, but on the shoe that had been almost touched. The low growl persisted, a continuous, unsettling thrum. "Leo, no," Sarah exclaimed, her voice sharp with shock and a touch of fear. She quickly moved between Liam and the dog, scooping her son into her arms. Liam, now truly frightened, buried his face in her shoulder, whimpering. Mark, drawn by the unusual commotion, rushed into the living room. "What's going on?" he demanded, his eyes scanning the scene. He saw Liam's distress, Sarah's shocked face, and Leo, who, though still growling softly, had lowered his head, his eyes now conveying a troubled, almost remorseful expression. The shoe remained fiercely protected. He growled at Liam," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. "Liam just tried to touch the shoe, and Leo, he growled. I've never seen him like that." Mark frowned, his initial concern giving way to a hint of annoyance. "Leo, come on, boy," he said, moving closer, his hand reaching out to pat the dog's head. But Leo flinched, pulling back slightly, his eyes still fixed on the shoe. It was a subtle rejection, but a clear one. "See," Sarah whispered. "It's about the shoes. There's something about them. He's never been possessive of anything else, but these are different." The incident cast a pall over the rest of the day. Liam was unusually quiet, clinging to Sarah, casting wary glances at Leo whenever the dog entered the room. Leo, for his part, seemed subdued, his usual playful energy replaced by a quiet watchfulness. He kept the shoes closer than ever, almost as if guarding a precious, fragile secret. Later that evening, after Liam was finally asleep, soothed by countless stories and extra cuddles, Sarah and Mark sat on the couch, the silence between them heavy with unspoken questions. "I don't like it." "Mark," Sarah finally said, breaking the quiet, "that wasn't our Leo. He's always been so gentle. What if there's something wrong with him? What if he's sick? Or what if these shoes are actually triggering some old trauma we don't know about?" Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It was just a warning. Sarah, he didn't hurt Liam. He just got protective over his toy. Maybe we should just get rid of the shoes. It's an old, unsanitary habit anyway." "No." Sarah's voice was sharp, startling him. "Don't you see if he's willing to growl at Liam, the child he adores, over those shoes? They mean something profound to him. It's not just a toy, Mark. It's something he clearly values above all else. What if they're the only thing he has left from his past? Taking them away, it might break him." Her voice softened, a plea. "We need to understand this, not just dismiss it. What if this is a clue to who he was before us? What if it's a piece of a puzzle we haven't seen yet?" Mark looked at her, then towards Leo, who was curled up in his bed, the shoes nestled safely between his paws. He saw the genuine distress in Sarah's eyes, the deep empathy she felt for the animal. He also couldn't shake the image of Liam's frightened face. "Okay," he conceded. "We won't get rid of them, but we need to figure this out. Maybe a vet visit. Not just for a checkup, but to ask about this behavior. There has to be a reason. There has to be something more to this than just a dog being oddly attached to a pair of old shoes." Unbeknownst to them, the seemingly minor incident with Liam and the shoes was not just a behavioral anomaly. It was a tremor, a subtle shift in the carefully balanced equilibrium of Leo's hidden grief. Liam's innocent touch had brushed against a raw nerve, a deeply buried memory, and in doing so, it had inadvertently set in motion a chain of events that would unravel a long-held secret and bring to light a truth far more tragic and profound than any of them could possibly imagine. The shoes, quiet and unassuming, held more than just dust. They held the echo of a forgotten life. Waiting to be heard, the incident with Liam had rattled Sarah profoundly. The raw, guttural growl from Leo, a sound so alien to his gentle nature, echoed in her mind. It confirmed her growing suspicion the shoes weren't just a quirky comfort item, they were central to a deeper, unaddressed trauma. The decision was made. A visit to Dr. Finch, their trusted veterinarian, was no longer just about a routine checkup, but a desperate quest for answers. Dr. Eleanor Finch was a woman of calm demeanor and sharp intellect, her gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her eyes kind yet keenly observant. She had been Leo's vet since his adoption and knew the dog's placid, affectionate nature well, as Sarah recounted the incident, her voice laced with worry. Dr. Finch listened intently, her brow furrowed, a growl at Liam. That's certainly uncharacteristic for Leo, Dr. Finch mused, stroking her chin. Especially over an object. Most dogs protect their food or space, but rarely an inanimate object with such ferocity, especially towards a child they adore. She watched Leo, who was currently lying quietly at Sarah's feet, his gaze occasionally drifting to the bag where the shoes, temporarily, had been placed for the visit after a thorough physical examination, which revealed no immediate medical cause for aggression. Dr. Finch suggested a behavioral consultation. Sometimes, unusual attachments like this stem from a deep-seated psychological need, she explained gently. Given his history as a rescue, and the neglect he suffered, it's possible these shoes represent a form of security, a coping mechanism linked to his abandonment. Sarah nodded, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. But what if there's more? What if they're tied to something specific that happened to him or his previous owner? Dr. Finch paused, her gaze thoughtful. It's certainly a possibility. Animals, especially highly intelligent ones like German shepherds, can form incredibly strong bonds and retain vivid memories. If these shoes belong to his previous owner, and something traumatic happened, he might be guarding the last tangible link to that person. It's a sad thought. She prescribed a mild anxiety medication to help Leo relax, but admitted it was a temporary solution. Understanding the root cause is key. Sarah, without that, were just treating symptoms. As days turned into weeks, Leo's behavior, while not outwardly aggressive, became increasingly withdrawn. He would spend more time than usual secluded with his shoes, often in a quiet corner of the house, his magnificent head resting heavily upon them. His appetite, usually robust, became fickle. His once playful interactions with Liam grew more subdued. He would still follow the boy, his loyalty unwavering, but the spark, the joyful exuberance, seemed to dim. One morning, Sarah found him unresponsive to her calls for breakfast. Her heart leaped into her throat, rushing to his side. She found him lying in his usual spot. The shoes clutched close, but his breathing was shallow and ragged. His eyes, usually bright, were glazed over, and his body felt alarmingly warm to the touch. He barely stirred when she touched him. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. "Mark, something's wrong with Leo," she cried, her voice laced with terror. They rushed him back to Dr. Finch, who immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. Leo was running a dangerously high fever, and his lethargy was profound. A series of urgent tests were run. Blood work revealed an aggressive infection, but its origin was a mystery. His white blood cell count was dangerously high, indicating his body was fighting a fierce, unknown battle. It's not just a behavioral issue now. "Sarah, this is serious," Dr. Finch said, her usual calm replaced by an urgent concern. "We need to identify the source of this infection. It could be anything from a deep-seated wound that festered to something internal, organ-related. We'll start him on broad-spectrum antibiotics and IV fluids, but he's critical." Liam, sensing the palpable shift in the household's atmosphere, watched everything with wide, worried eyes. He saw his parents' strained faces, heard the hushed, anxious conversations. He saw Leo, usually so vibrant, now lying still and weak on the examination table. A confusing array of tubes attached to him. His beloved furry friend, his silent guardian, was hurting, unable to fully comprehend the gravity of the situation. Liam did what any child would do, he sought to comfort. While Sarah and Mark were speaking in low tones with Dr. Finch, Liam quietly slipped away. He found the bag where Leo's cherished old shoes had been placed, retrieved one of them, and toddled back towards the examination room. His small hands, clumsy yet determined, tried to place the worn leather shoe gently beside Leo's head. But as he adjusted it, something tiny, something metallic, caught the light and dislodged from the frayed leather lining near the shoe's sole. It fell with a faint clink onto the stainless steel table. Unnoticed by the adults caught up in their urgent discussion about Leo's declining health, Liam, curious, knelt down, his bright blue eyes fixed on the small, tarnished object. He picked it up, his brow furrowed in concentration. It was a locket, tiny and unremarkable. Yet it felt heavy with an untold story. He held it in his palm, a silent, unassuming key to a mystery far grander than any of them could have possibly imagined. The truth, buried deep within the mundane, was finally ready to be unearthed by the most innocent of hands. The air in Dr. Finch's examination room was thick with unspoken tension, punctuated only by the soft, rhythmic hum of the IV pump beside Leo and the hushed, urgent voices of Sarah and Mark. Their focus was entirely on their beloved German shepherd, whose labored breaths and still form spoke volumes of his rapid decline. Liam, however, oblivious to the medical jargon and the mounting fear, was absorbed in his own small world of discovery. He sat on the cool, linoleum floor, his small hands carefully examining the tarnished locket he had dislodged from Leo's old shoe. It was no bigger than his thumbnail, shaped like a tiny, ornate heart, its surface dulled by age and grime. His brow furrowed in concentration as he tried to pry it open, his chubby fingers fumbling with the tiny clasp. The metallic scent of the locket mingled with the sterile clinic air. Unnoticed by anyone but the curious toddler, Dr. Finch, his temperature is still rising. Sarah's voice was tight with worry. What could this be? Is there anything else we can do? Dr. Finch, her face grim, adjusted Leo's IV drip. We're doing everything we can. Sarah, the antibiotics are potent, but this infection is aggressive. We need to find the source. We've done blood cultures, but those take time. His white blood cell count is through the roof, and his organs are under strain. She paused, looking at Leo, a flicker of genuine concern in her eyes. He's a strong dog, but this is hitting him hard. Liam, meanwhile, with a grunt of effort, finally managed to pry open the tiny locket. It opened with a faint click, revealing not sparkling jewels or a lock of hair, but a minuscule, faded photograph. He held it up to the light, his eyes widening in childish wonder. "Mama, look!" Liam exclaimed, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Startling Sarah and Mark, Sarah, distracted and worried, turned, expecting to see a new toy or some trinket. Her eyes, however, landed on the small, tarnished locket in Liam's hand, then on the tiny, sepia-toned image it contained. Her breath caught in her throat. "Liam, where did you get that?" she asked. Her voice a surprised whisper. As she reached out to take the locket, Liam pointed a small finger towards the worn shoe that lay on the floor near Leo's bed. From Leo's shoe, Mark, equally puzzled, knelt beside them. Sarah carefully took the locket. Her fingers, usually steady, trembled slightly as she examined the faded photograph. It was a picture of a young man, perhaps in his early 20s, smiling warmly. His eyes, though slightly blurred by the passage of time, held a kind, gentle light. He had a mop of unruly brown hair and a scattering of freckles across his nose. And then, Sarah noticed the detail that sent a jolt of recognition through her. Tucked into the man's arms, a tiny, almost indistinguishable furry bundle. A puppy, a German Shepherd puppy. So small, so young, yet unmistakably Leo. The distinctive dark saddle on his back, the faint white patch on his chest. It was him. A younger, smaller version of the powerful dog lying critically ill just feet away. Mark, look. Sarah breathed, her voice barely audible. She handed him the locket, her gaze darting between the faded photograph and the sleeping Leo. Mark took the locket, his eyes narrowing as he studied the image. He saw the young man, a vague sense of familiarity tugging at the edges of his memory, like a half-forgotten dream. Then his gaze fell upon the puppy. Is that really Leo? He whispered, astonishment coloring his voice. The implications were staggering. These weren't just random old shoes. They belonged to this man. Leo's first owner. A sudden, sharp pain flared in Leo's side, and he let out a choked whimper, pulling Sarah and Mark's attention back to their immediate crisis. The discovery of the locket was momentous, but Leo's life hung precariously in the balance. Dr. Finch, observing the unfolding scene with a mixture of professional detachment and growing intrigue, spoke up. This locket, where exactly did it come from in the shoe? Sarah, still reeling from the photograph, pointed to the tattered lining of one of the shoes. It was just in there. Liam pulled it out. Dr. Finch carefully examined the shoe, her brow furrowed in thought. The shoe was old, the leather cracked, the sole heavily worn. The interior lining was torn in places, providing a small, hidden pocket where something as tiny as the locket could have remained concealed for years. Unnoticed. This changes things, Dr. Finch said, her voice now more contemplative. If these shoes and this locket belonged to Leo's original owner and they were found with him, it suggests a deeper, more personal connection to whatever happened to him. And that aggression he showed towards Liam. It wasn't aggression towards the boy, but a desperate need to protect this. The last tangible link to his past? She paused, a new line of inquiry forming in her mind. Could there be anything else in that shoe? Anything else hidden? The question hung in the air, transforming the mundane object into a potential treasure trove of hidden history. The faded photograph, the tiny locket, Liam's innocent discovery. It was a trail of breadcrumbs, leading them back into a forgotten past. A past that held the key to Leo's profound melancholy, his mysterious illness, and perhaps the fate of the young man in the photograph. The seemingly ordinary pair of old shoes had just unveiled a secret that would shake their family to its core and send them on a journey far beyond the confines of a veterinary clinic. The small locket, clutched in Sarah's palm, felt impossibly heavy. Its faded photograph of a young man and a tiny German Shepherd puppy. Undoubtedly, Leo was more than just an old picture. It was a ghost from the past. A silent witness to a life tragically interrupted. Dr. Finch. Her professional demeanor momentarily softened by the poignancy of the discovery, took the locket and the shoe to her examination desk, her expression thoughtful. We need to be careful with this, Dr. Finch murmured, picking up a pair of sterile tweezers. This shoe is clearly very old, and whatever else might be hidden inside could be fragile. She meticulously probed the torn lining, her movements precise and unhurried. The air in the room, previously filled with the hum of medical equipment and the palpable anxiety for Leo, was now charged with a different kind of tension, the quiet suspense of an unfolding mystery. Leo, despite his critical condition, seemed almost aware of the focused attention on his cherished item. He lay still, his labored breathing filling the quiet. But his eyes, though heavy-lidded, flickered towards the desk, a faint whine escaping him. It was as if he, too, was waiting, hoping for a piece of his lost world to be revealed. Mark, meanwhile, stood beside Sarah, his mind racing. The young man in the photo stirred a deeply buried memory, a fleeting image from his own childhood, long since relegated to the forgotten corners of his mind. A name, vague and elusive, hovered at the edge of his consciousness, like a word just out of reach. He had grown up in this very town, a small, close-knit community where everyone knew everyone. Or so he thought. But the face in the locket, while familiar, refused to fully materialize into a concrete identity. "The initial," Sarah whispered, pointing to the tiny engraving on the locket's back. "JT, do you recognize anyone with those initials?" "Mark." "From when you were kids who had a German Shepherd puppy," Mark frowned, racking his brain. JT. He shook his head. Nothing immediately springs to mind. There were a few kids who had dogs, but a German Shepherd puppy specifically. And a JT? He trailed off, frustrated. His childhood memories of this town were mostly idyllic, filled with summer days and innocent mischief. This image, this vague sense of tragedy, didn't fit. Just as Dr. Finch carefully extracted another tiny object from the shoe, a sliver of yellowed, brittle paper, folded multiple times. Leo let out a distressed whimper, his body tensing. His fever, despite the antibiotics, seemed to be spiking again. Dr. Finch quickly set aside the paper and turned her attention back to her patient. "He's crashing," she said, her voice sharp with renewed urgency. "His heart rate is dropping. We need to administer a stronger vasopressor. This infection is overwhelming him." The revelation of the locket and the potential for a deeper mystery immediately took a backseat to Leo's precarious medical crisis. Sarah and Mark watched helplessly as Dr. Finch and her assistant worked frantically, injecting medication, adjusting monitors, their faces grim. The room filled with the hushed, rapid-fire commands of the veterinarian, the beeping of machines, and the desperate, shallow gasps of the beloved dog. Liam, sensing the escalating tension, began to cry, his small wails echoing the fear in the room. Sarah scooped him up, holding him tight, her own tears blurring her vision. It was a cruel twist of fate. The very object that might lead them to answers about Leo's past now seemed to coincide with his potential demise. "We have to get his temperature down." "Now," Dr. Finch exclaimed, her voice strained. "And try to pinpoint the source of this infection. Could it be something he ingested? Something in his environment." Her eyes fell on the old shoe, lying innocently on the desk. Could something from inside the shoe be causing this an illogical, desperate thought? Perhaps, but at this point, every possibility had to be explored. She quickly donned gloves and meticulously examined the interior of the shoe. Turning it over, sniffing it, nothing. No strange residues, no pungent odors. Nothing that indicated it was the source of a virulent infection. It was just old leather, after what felt like an eternity. Leo's vital signs stabilized, albeit precariously. He was still in critical condition, but the immediate crisis had passed. Dr. Finch wiped her brow, exhaustion etched on her face. "He's a fighter, truly," she murmured, looking at the German Shepherd. "But we're still in the dark about the cause of this aggressive infection. We need those blood cultures back, and we might need to consider more invasive diagnostics, like a biopsy. If he doesn't improve soon, with Leo momentarily stable." Dr. Finch's gaze drifted back to the small piece of paper she had set aside. It was tiny, folded multiple times, clearly old and delicate, with painstaking care. She unfolded it. It was not a letter or a drawing, but a neatly written inscription. Faded by time but still legible. It was a single line, a dedication. For my best boy, always JT. And beneath it, scrawled in a smaller, almost childish hand, were coordinates, a series of numbers that looked like geographical coordinates. Sarah gasped, leaning over to read it. JT, it matches the locket! Her eyes met Mark's, a thrilling, terrifying realization dawning on them both. This wasn't just a sentimental note, this was a direct link, a breadcrumb trail left by Leo's first owner, preserved within the very object that had been Leo's constant companion. The coordinates? They held the key. They might lead them to answers, to the truth of JT's fate, and perhaps to the very source of Leo's enduring sorrow and his mysterious illness. The old shoes, once just a curious oddity, had become the silent narrators of a long-buried secret, finally ready to whisper their tale. The tiny pass of yellowed paper, with its cryptic coordinates and the poignant dedication, "For my best boy, always JT," vibrated with untold stories. Sarah and Mark stared at it, a profound sense of awe and apprehension washing over them. Leo, despite his critical state, seemed to sense the shift in the room's energy, his ears twitching faintly towards the paper. "These are GPS coordinates," Mark finally said, his voice a low, excited whisper. "They pinpoint a precise location." He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen, inputting the numbers. Sarah leaned over his shoulder, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. A map materialized on the screen, a red pin dropping onto a location about an hour's drive from their town. It was a remote, heavily wooded area, bordering the old, disused Thompson family farm, a place whispered about in hushed tones in their community for its long-abandoned state and the mysterious disappearance of its last occupant. James Thompson. Decades ago, James Thompson. Mark breathed, the name finally clicking into place with a jolt of recognition that sent a chill down his spine. "That's it, James Thompson. He was a few years older than me, but we played together sometimes as kids. He disappeared. When I was maybe 10 or 11, just vanished. Everyone assumed he ran away. Or worse, his family abandoned the farm shortly after." Sarah gasped, her eyes wide. "So, this JT in the locket, it's James Thompson. And the puppy in the picture. That's Leo. He was James's dog." The implications were staggering, a forgotten tragedy unfolding before their eyes. Dr. Finch, who had been listening intently while monitoring Leo, looked up, her expression grave. If this is indeed James Thompson, and Leo was his dog, then this is far more than just a behavioral oddity. This is a cold case, a missing person, potentially a crime scene. And if Leo was there, if he witnessed something? Her voice trailed off, the grim reality settling in. Leo's mysterious illness, the aggressive infection, suddenly took on a new, terrifying potential meaning. Could it be linked to whatever happened to James? Could he have ingested something or been exposed to something at that location? "We need to go there," Sarah stated, her voice firm, resolute. "Now, we need to find out what happened to James for Leo's sake. And for James's—" "Wait," Dr. Finch interjected, holding up a hand. "Leo is still critical, and this could be a crime scene. You need to contact the police immediately. Do not go there yourselves. It could be dangerous, and you could compromise potential evidence." Her words were a sobering splash of cold water. They were not detectives, nor forensic experts. They were just a worried family trying to understand their dog. The gravity of the situation hit them. This wasn't a game. It was a deeply personal mystery rooted in a forgotten tragedy. Mark nodded, already reaching for his phone. "You're right, Detective Roberts. He's the head of cold cases for the county. He'll know what to do." As Mark made the call, his voice low and urgent, Sarah looked at Leo, The German Shepherd lay still, his breathing shallow, tubes connected to his frail body. The old shoes, the locket, the coordinates. They were Leo's silent testimony, his only way of telling them what he had witnessed, what he remembered. He had carried this burden of memory for years, his silent grief manifesting in his profound attachment to the shoes, and now, perhaps in his inexplicable illness. He was not just a dog, he was a living, breathing piece of evidence. A loyal sentinel still guarding the secret of his beloved owner. Detective Thomas Roberts was a man who lived in the shadows of unresolved mysteries. His office, filled with dusty files and overflowing whiteboards, was a testament to decades spent chasing ghosts. When Mark's call came in, detailing the extraordinary story of a German Shepherd, a pair of old shoes, a hidden locket, and a decades-old missing person case, Roberts' initial skepticism was quickly replaced by a profound sense of intrigue. He had personally reviewed the James Thompson file years ago. A baffling disappearance, ruled a likely runaway, eventually relegated to the cold case archives. But this new information, it was unlike anything he had ever encountered. You're saying a dog, 2 decades later, threw a hidden locket in a shoe, led you to a precise location that matches an old missing person's last known address? Roberts asked, his voice slow, measured, but with an underlying current of fascination. Yes, detective, Mark confirmed, his voice steady. And the dog, Leo. He was the puppy in the photo with James. He was found with those shoes. Roberts promised to investigate immediately. He dispatched a small team to the given coordinates, while he himself prepared to visit the clinic to speak with Sarah, Mark, and Dr. Finch, and, perhaps most importantly, to see the dog for himself. The story was wild, almost fantastical, but Roberts had learned long ago that truth was often stranger than fiction, and that sometimes the most unexpected witnesses held the key to unlocking the deepest secrets. Back at the clinic, the tension was palpable. Leo's condition remained critical, a constant reminder of the urgency of their quest. Sarah sat by his side, gently stroking his fur, whispering promises. We're going to find out what happened. Leo, we're going to find James. We're going to get justice for him. Just hold on. Boy, the quiet dedication on the slip of paper. For my best boy, always. JT resonated deeply within her. It was a testament to a bond as profound as the one she now shared with Leo and Liam. A bond that, against all odds, was now demanding that the truth, however painful, finally come to light. The journey had truly begun, driven by the silent whispers of loyalty emanating from a pair of old, worn shoes. Detective Thomas Roberts arrived at Dr. Finch's clinic with the quiet efficiency of a man who had seen too much, yet still harbored a flicker of hope for the unexpected. His gaze, shrewd and assessing, took in Sarah's worried face, Mark's grim determination, and, finally, settled on Leo, the German Shepherd. Still frail and connected to an IV drip, seemed to sense the detective's presence, his ears twitching almost imperceptibly. Roberts was accustomed to cold facts, not the poignant silence of a loyal animal holding a decades-old secret. So, this is the dog, Roberts murmured, his voice a low rumble. He leaned over Leo's kennel. Observing the German Shepherd's labored breathing, there was an undeniable wisdom in Leo's eyes, a profound sorrow that transcended mere canine instinct. Then, his attention shifted to the old shoe, the locket, and the tiny, yellowed slip of paper resting on Dr. Finch's desk. He picked up the locket, his thumb tracing the faint JT engraving. And this is James Thompson's locket, Roberts asked, his eyes meeting Mark's. You're certain of the identification? Mark nodded, his voice steady. The man in the photo with the puppy, that's James. I remember him now, detective, from elementary school. He had just gotten that puppy before he disappeared. The weight of the rediscovered memory, the forgotten friendship, pressed down on him. Roberts carefully studied the coordinates on the slip of paper. And this points to the old Thompson farm, the abandoned property. The one everyone just assumed he ran away from. He knew the file well. It was one of the county's perennial unsolved mysteries. Tucked away in the cold case archives, gathering dust? Yes, Dr. Finch interjected, her professional medical concern momentarily overshadowed by the unfolding human drama. And Leo, our patient here, is battling a severe aggressive infection. We've run tests, but the source is still unknown. Could it be related to where he was? Or what he might have witnessed? Roberts's gaze sharpened. The concept of a dog as a living, breathing piece of evidence, suffering perhaps from the very event he witnessed, was unprecedented in his career. It's a long shot, doctor, but in a cold case like this, we explore every angle. He paused, his eyes returning to Leo. He's a powerful dog. If he was protecting something, or trying to intervene, he could have been injured, exposed to something, or even intentionally silenced. The implication hung heavy in the air, a chilling suggestion of foul play. Roberts immediately called in a specialized forensic team, giving them the coordinates. I want that property thoroughly scoured, he ordered into his phone. Every inch, look for anything, no matter how small, and pay particular attention to any disturbances, any unusual soil, anything that might suggest a struggle or a burial site, as the forensic team mobilized. Roberts turned his attention back to Sarah and Mark. This is no longer just about finding answers for your dog. This is now an active homicide investigation. James Thompson didn't just disappear. Something happened to him. And Leo was there. The gravity of his words settled over them, cold and stark. The innocent family pet, the subject of a curious habit, was now inextricably linked to a decades-old murder. The whimsical charm of the baby saw a dog sleeping with old shoes story evaporated, replaced by the grim reality of a violent crime. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Leo's condition remained critical. The antibiotics were fighting the infection, but his body was weak, his reserves depleted. Dr. Finch worked tirelessly, her concern for her patient deepening with every passing hour. She understood the profound significance of Leo's survival now. He wasn't just a patient, he was a silent witness, a link to justice. Liam, unaware of the grim implications, continued to visit Leo, his small hand stroking the dog's head, his innocent voice whispering encouragement. Get better. Leo, play soon. His pure, unadulterated love seemed to be the only thing that brought a flicker of recognition to Leo's glazed eyes. The forensic team, led by a seasoned investigator named Miller, no relation to the detective from the previous story, arrived at the dilapidated Thompson farm. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay. The coordinates pointed to a specific spot near an overgrown, dilapidated barn, a place that seemed to whisper secrets. Hours passed, then days. The team meticulously combed the area, using ground-penetrating radar, soil analysis, and cadaver dogs. The search was painstaking, hampered by decades of overgrowth and the passage of time. The initial excitement began to wane, replaced by the weary rhythm of a tough, cold case. Then, a breakthrough. One of the cadaver dogs, a highly trained Belgian Malinois, began to alert furiously near an old, crumbling stone wall, partially hidden by dense ivy. The team focused their efforts there, carefully excavating the ground. And then, they found it. Not a full skeleton, but bone fragments, small and deeply buried, consistent with human remains, and next to them, a corroded, rusted metal object, what appeared to be the handle of an old, heavy-duty shovel. The soil around the fragments also contained traces of an unusual chemical, a type of industrial cleaner, not typically found in rural environments. The discovery sent a jolt of electricity through the team. Roberts received the call, his heart pounding. "We've found something," the forensic lead reported, his voice grim. "Bone fragments, human, and a potential weapon. It's confirmation." Detective James Thompson was murdered, and the chemical residue? That's interesting. The immediate focus shifted to the identity of the bones, which would require extensive forensic analysis. And the chemical. But the pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. After decades of silence, the old shoes, the locket, Liam's innocent discovery, and Leo's unwavering loyalty had finally unearthed a truth that the earth itself had tried to bury. The quiet whispers of loyalty had finally led to a scream for justice. The discovery of human remains at the old Thompson farm sent a jolt of grim energy through Detective Roberts' cold case unit. The bone fragments, though small and deteriorated by decades in the earth, were enough. Coupled with the rusted shovel handle and the puzzling chemical residue found nearby, it confirmed Roberts' growing conviction James Thompson hadn't run away. He had been murdered, and Leo, the silent, loyal German shepherd, had been a witness to a crime that had remained buried for over 2 decades. Roberts wasted no time. The immediate priority was to identify the remains. The fragments were rushed to the state forensic lab for DNA analysis and anthropological examination. While they waited for the definitive confirmation, Roberts delved deeper into the original James Thompson missing person file. It was thin, marked by the typical assumptions of a teenage runaway case. A troubled home, a quiet boy, a sudden departure. But now, with Leo's silent testimony leading the way, every line of the old report seemed to whisper a darker truth. He re-interviewed the original officers, those who were still alive, their memories hazy with time. He dug through old newspaper clippings, police blotters, and school records. The picture that emerged was of a quiet, somewhat withdrawn boy, deeply attached to his family's farm and his animals, particularly a new German shepherd puppy. James's family, the Thompsons, had been embroiled in a bitter, protracted land dispute with a powerful, influential local developer named Arthur Sterling. Sterling had a reputation for ruthless business dealings, often skirting the edges of legality, and an almost pathological desire to acquire the Thompson land, which bordered a valuable riverfront property he owned. Roberts remembered the whispers from back then, Sterling's aggressive tactics, the threats, the strange accidents that plagued the Thompson farm. But there had never been any concrete evidence, just speculation. The police, overwhelmed by other cases and lacking a body, had eventually closed the case as an unsolved disappearance. Now, the chemical residue found with the bone fragments piqued Roberts' interest. Initial tests suggested it was a commercial-grade industrial solvent, used in construction and often found on large development sites. Sterling's company, Sterling Developments, was notorious for using such chemicals in their heavy machinery and site preparations. The coincidence was too strong to ignore. Meanwhile, at the veterinary clinic, Leo continued his valiant fight. The blood cultures finally came back, confirming a rare bacterial infection, one often found in contaminated soil or water. It was a bacteria that could lie dormant, only to flare up when the host's immune system was compromised by stress or other factors. The theory solidified Leo had likely contracted the infection from the very ground where James had been buried, carrying the unseen killer within him for years. A silent, festering wound mirroring his unresolved grief. Sarah and Mark spent their days in a state of anxious limbo. They visited Leo constantly, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their beloved dog was literally suffering from the echoes of a past crime. Liam, surprisingly perceptive, seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. He would sit by Leo's kennel, humming soft tunes, his small hand resting gently on Leo's head, an innocent source of comfort for the struggling animal. The community, already invested in Leo's story, reacted with shock and outrage when news of the murder investigation broke. The local paper, once again, ran sensational headlines. Hero dog unearths cold case murder, and lost boy found after decades. Dog holds the key. The story resonated deeply, a powerful narrative of loyalty, injustice, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Old-timers in town, who had always suspected foul play in James Thompson's disappearance, found their long-held suspicions confirmed. Whispers about Arthur Sterling, long dismissed as mere gossip, began to resurface, louder and more insistent than ever. Detective Roberts, while managing the media frenzy, focused his attention on Arthur Sterling. He compiled a detailed dossier on Sterling, digging into his past, his business dealings, his known associates. He learned that Sterling had a history of violent outbursts and a ruthless streak when it came to securing his business interest. Roberts assigned his best team to conduct discreet surveillance on Sterling, gathering intel, looking for anything that might link him to James Thompson's death. The forensic lab called with the DNA results. The bone fragments were a definitive match. They belonged to James Thompson. The confirmation brought a wave of both sorrow and grim satisfaction. James, the quiet boy who loved animals, had finally been found. His family, scattered and heartbroken, would finally have answers. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, and the growing circumstantial links to Arthur Sterling, Roberts knew he was close. The motive was clear, the land dispute, the opportunity was there, and the witness, a loyal German shepherd carrying the very essence of the crime within him, both in his memories and in his very blood, was the most compelling piece of all. The decades-old secret, buried deep in the earth and guarded by a faithful dog, was finally about to explode into the light of justice. The hunter had become the hunted, and Arthur Sterling, living a life of unearned privilege, was about to face the consequences of a crime he thought long buried. The web of circumstantial evidence around Arthur Sterling tightened with each passing day. Detective Roberts, with the confirmed DNA match of James Thompson's remains and the peculiar industrial solvent, now had the motive, the opportunity, and a chilling new piece of the puzzle. Sterling, a man who had built an empire on ruthless ambition, was about to face the reckoning of a long-buried past. Roberts meticulously reviewed Sterling's financial records from 2 decades prior, looking for any anomalies, any large, unexplained expenses that might coincide with James's disappearance. He found a series of substantial, untraceable cash withdrawals from Sterling's personal accounts around that time. Unusual for a man who typically dealt in legitimate business transactions. This suggested a payoff, or a desperate need for cash for an illicit activity. He also delved into old police reports of local disturbances or suspicious activities around the Thompson farm during the period of the land dispute. One particular report caught his eye, a minor vandalism complaint filed by James Thompson's father, detailing a forced entry into their barn and the theft of some old farming equipment, including a heavy-duty shovel, the very type of shovel whose handle had been found buried with James's remains. The report had been dismissed as petty theft at the time, but now it screamed of premeditation, of a tool acquired for a sinister purpose. The chemical solvent also proved to be a critical lead. Roberts' team discovered that Sterling Developments had exclusively used a very specific, rare brand of industrial cleaner for their heavy machinery, one that matched the residue found at the burial site. This cleaner was not readily available to the public. It was purchased in bulk directly from a specialized industrial supplier. It was a unique signature, a grim calling card left behind by the killer, While the investigation intensified, Leo, back at Dr. Finch's clinic, began a slow, miraculous recovery. The potent antibiotics, finally matched to the specific bacteria, were working. His fever slowly receded, and the glazed look in his eyes began to clear. His appetite returned, and he even managed a weak tail wag when Liam visited, his little face lighting up with unadulterated joy. Dr. Finch, though relieved, remained cautious. He's still got a long way to go, but he's responding to treatment. She told Sarah and Mark one afternoon. His body is fighting back. It's almost as if knowing the truth is coming out has given him a new will to live. She knew it sounded unscientific, but the correlation between Leo's improvement and the progress of the investigation was undeniable. The silent burden he had carried for so long was finally being lifted. Liam, unaware of the grim details of the murder, simply rejoiced in Leo's progress. He would sit by the kennel, humming and telling Leo stories. His innocent voice a balm to the recovering dog. He would bring his favorite stuffed animals, placing them carefully near Leo's paws. A silent offering of comfort and companionship. The bond between them, forged in innocence and shared experience, was growing stronger by the day. Roberts, now confident he had enough evidence for a search warrant, prepared for the confrontation. He knew Sterling was a powerful man, well-connected, and unlikely to break easily. This had to be meticulously planned. Airtight. He gathered his team, briefing them on Sterling's ruthless nature and the importance of securing every piece of evidence. The raid on Arthur Sterling's opulent estate was conducted at dawn, a calculated shock and awe tactic. Sterling, a man accustomed to control and deference, was caught completely off guard, his face contorting in a mask of rage and disbelief as uniformed officers swarmed his meticulously manicured property. Roberts himself confronted Sterling in his sprawling, art-filled living room. "Arthur Sterling, you're under arrest for the murder of James Thompson," Roberts stated, his voice flat, devoid of triumph. Sterling, initially defiant, sneered. "Murder that boy ran away decades ago." "You have nothing, Roberts. This is harassment. We have his remains," Roberts countered, holding up a forensic report. "Confirmed by DNA, found on the old Thompson property, and we have the industrial solvent found with him. Mr. Sterling, the same specific brand only your company used." Roberts watched Sterling's face, seeing the flicker of recognition, the subtle shift from arrogance to cold, calculating fear. "We also have the shovel handle from the Thompsons' old barn, the one reported stolen, the very same week James disappeared." Sterling's eyes narrowed, a desperate calculation taking place behind them. "Circumstantial. All circumstantial. You can't prove a thing. We have motive." "Mr. Sterling, that land was worth a fortune. James Thompson was standing in your way." Roberts continued, his voice relentless. "And we have a witness. A very loyal witness. A German shepherd who never forgot. He led us to James. He carried the infection from James's gravesite for years to tease, and he remembered the shoes that contained the locket, with James's picture and the coordinates to his burial. The mention of the dog, the shoes, seemed to strike a nerve." Sterling's carefully constructed composure began to crack. A vein pulsed in his temple. The fantastical, almost unbelievable story of Leo's unwavering loyalty, combined with the irrefutable forensic evidence, was a truth too powerful to deny. As Sterling was led away in handcuffs, his once imposing figure now seemed diminished, defeated. His face a grim mask of silent fury. The community, watching the news reports of his arrest, erupted in a mixture of shock and vindication. The whispers of suspicion that had haunted Arthur Sterling for decades now roared into a deafening chorus of accusation. Justice, a patient, relentless force, had finally caught up to him, guided by the silent, steadfast devotion of a German shepherd and the innocent curiosity of a little boy. The truth, after years of slumber, had awakened, demanding its due. The arrest of Arthur Sterling sent ripples of shock and a perverse satisfaction through the community. The man who had cultivated an image of impenetrable success and quiet authority was now exposed as a murderer. The news exploded, transforming the local story into a national sensation. The hero dog's silent testimony became the catchphrase, highlighting the incredible role Leo had played in unearthing a decades-old crime. Detective Roberts, having delivered the devastating blow to Sterling, now faced the arduous task of building a rock-solid case for prosecution. He knew Sterling would fight tooth and nail, leveraging his wealth and influence to discredit the evidence and twist the narrative. The discovery of James Thompson's remains was irrefutable, but connecting Sterling directly to the act, beyond the circumstantial evidence, required a meticulous and relentless pursuit of justice. The old Thompson farm became a beehive of activity. Forensic teams, armed with advanced technology, continued to scour the property, looking for anything Sterling might have overlooked in his callous attempt to bury his crime. They found faint, almost indistinguishable tire tracks near the burial site, consistent with a vehicle model Sterling had owned at the time. More importantly, hidden beneath a layer of compacted soil near the old barn, they discovered a small, corroded metal box. Inside, amidst layers of dried mud and rust, were a few tarnished personal effects belonging to James, a Boy Scout badge, a battered compass, and a small, worn leather wallet containing a single, faded photograph of his parents and, chillingly, a hand-drawn map of the property. The map had a crude X marking the very spot where his remains were found. It was a heartbreaking testament to James's final, desperate moments, perhaps left as a silent message to anyone who might find him. This new evidence, along with the unique chemical residue and the stolen shovel report, bolstered the prosecution's case significantly. The narrative began to solidify. Sterling, frustrated by James's family's refusal to sell their land, had escalated his threats, eventually leading to a violent confrontation where James was murdered. Leo, as a young puppy, had likely witnessed the horrific act and, in his loyalty, had tried to intervene, resulting in the brutal attack that left him for dead. Forever tethered to the tragic memory, at the clinic, Leo's recovery, while still ongoing, was remarkable. The aggressive infection that had threatened his life was finally receding, his body slowly reclaiming its strength. Dr. Finch, watching him eat with a renewed vigor, felt a profound sense of awe. His will to live is truly astounding, she told Sarah and Mark. It's as if he understood the importance of staying alive, of being a witness. She also noted a subtle shift in Leo's demeanor, while he still found comfort in the old shoes. The intense, almost sorrowful attachment seemed to lessen. He was still protective of them, but the desperate longing that had defined his relationship with them began to fade, replaced by a quieter, more peaceful presence. The lifting of the buried secret seemed to free him, allowing him to finally heal from the invisible wounds of his past. Liam, oblivious to the grim details of the courtroom drama, continued to be Leo's most ardent cheerleader. He spent hours by Leo's kennel, reading picture books aloud, his innocent voice a comforting hum. He brought Leo his favorite squeaky toy, urging him to play. And Leo, with newfound energy, would offer a soft rumble, a gentle wag of his tail, a clear sign of his improving spirits. The bond between the boy and the dog deepened, blossoming into a beautiful, reciprocal affection. The trial of Arthur Sterling began, drawing national attention. The prosecution presented their case with compelling precision: the motive, the opportunity, the forensic evidence, And the powerful, unspoken testimony of Leo, the German shepherd who had carried the secret for decades. Dr. Finch testified about Leo's mysterious illness and his attachment to the shoes. Sarah and Mark recounted Liam's discovery of the locket and the coordinates. And Detective Roberts laid out the intricate web of evidence that finally linked Sterling to James Thompson's murder. The most poignant moment came when Mrs. Agnes Gable, frail but resolute, took the stand. Her voice, though trembling, was clear as she recounted her fragmented memories of that stormy night. The dark sedan, the furtive figures, the sounds she had dismissed as wind, but now knew to be a child's cries, and the desperate whimpers of a dog. Her testimony, initially thought to be merely circumstantial, now solidified the timeline of Sterling's presence at the scene. Adding a human element of eyewitness account, Sterling's defense team, aggressive and well-funded, attempted to discredit the evidence. Dismissing Leo's role as mere coincidence and Mrs. Gable's testimony as the unreliable ramblings of an elderly woman. They argued that the new evidence was conveniently discovered, implying a setup. But the sheer volume and cohesion of the prosecution's case made it difficult to refute. As the trial progressed, the community watched with bated breath. The case became more than just a murder trial. It was a battle for truth, a testament to the power of unwavering loyalty, and a demand for justice for a boy who had been forgotten, and a dog who had silently grieved for decades. The scales of justice, often slow to move, were finally tipping decisively, illuminated by the silent whispers of an old pair of shoes and the persistent, unwavering love of a faithful German shepherd. The culmination of this long, arduous journey was drawing near, promising a resolution that would finally bring peace to a tormented soul and closure to a long-suffering family. The courtroom hummed with anticipation. The closing arguments in the state of county name, V's Arthur Sterling case, were about to begin. The culmination of decades of a buried secret and a relentless pursuit of justice. Arthur Sterling, typically composed and arrogant, looked visibly strained, the weight of the mounting evidence clearly pressing down on him. His eyes, once sharp and calculating, now held a haunted, almost desperate glint. The prosecution, led by a formidable district attorney, delivered a powerful closing argument. They meticulously pieced together the narrative, starting with the bitter land dispute between the Thompsons and Sterling, painting a picture of Sterling's escalating aggression and insatiable greed. They detailed the theft of the shovel from the Thompson barn, the unique industrial solvent found at the burial site, and the tire tracks linking Sterling's old vehicle to the scene. The DNA evidence confirming James Thompson's remains was irrefutable, but it was the human, and indeed, canine, element that truly resonated with the jury. The prosecution introduced the locket, the faded photograph of a smiling James and a tiny Leo. Emphasizing the profound bond between boy and dog, they recounted how Leo, driven by unwavering loyalty, had clung to the old shoes, protecting the last tangible link to his beloved owner. They described Liam's innocent discovery of the locket and the coordinates, the silent breadcrumbs left by James, found by the most unlikely of hands. For 20 years, the district attorney boomed, her voice echoing through the courtroom. Arthur Sterling believed he had buried his crime along with James Thompson. He thought the earth would keep his secret, but he underestimated the power of truth, the resilience of a memory, and the unbreakable loyalty of a German shepherd. She presented the scientific evidence of Leo's bacterial infection, acquired from the very ground where James lay, a living, breathing testament to the crime. Leo carried this secret, this wound, within him for 2 decades. His silent suffering, his profound attachment to those old shoes, was his way of remembering, of telling us what happened, of demanding justice for the boy he loved. The defense, well-funded and aggressive, attempted to poke holes in the prosecution's narrative. They argued that the evidence was largely circumstantial, that the dog's behavior was a coincidence, and that Mrs. Gable's testimony was unreliable due to her age and the passage of time. They tried to paint James Thompson as a troubled youth who might have run away, only to meet an unfortunate end elsewhere. They even tried to suggest that the locket and coordinates could have been planted. But Detective Roberts, seated in the gallery, watched with a quiet confidence. He knew the truth was unassailable. The confluence of disparate pieces of evidence, the forensic reports, the witness testimony, and the extraordinary story of Leo formed a narrative that was too compelling, too heartbreaking, to be easily dismissed. The jury deliberated for only 2 days. The verdict, when it came, was unanimous. Guilty? The word resonated through the courtroom like a thunderclap. Arthur Sterling's face, for the first time, crumpled. The mask of arrogance shattered, replaced by a look of profound shock and despair. He had lived for decades believing he was untouchable, that his secret was safe. But the silent witness, the loyal dog, and the innocent child had brought his dark past to light. The sentencing came swiftly. Arthur Sterling was given the maximum sentence for first-degree murder, child endangerment for his actions related to James's vulnerability, and desecration of remains. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars, his empire crumbling, his reputation irrevocably stained. Justice, raw and uncompromising, had finally been served. The news of Sterling's conviction spread like wildfire. The community rejoiced, a collective sigh of relief and vindication. The story of James Thompson, no longer just a cold case, was finally closed, his memory honored. For Leo. The news brought a different kind of peace. Back at the clinic, Leo was making remarkable progress. His infection was completely cleared, and his physical therapy was yielding incredible results. The slight limp remained, a badge of honor, but he moved with a newfound lightness. The heavy burden he had carried for 20 years seemed to have lifted. He still slept with the old shoes occasionally, but the fierce, desperate protectiveness was gone. They were still cherished, but now, perhaps, they were less a symbol of a lost past and more a relic of a memory honored. Sarah and Mark brought Liam to the clinic for a special visit. Liam, beaming, raced into Leo's room, throwing his arms around the German shepherd's neck. Leo responded with a joyous bark, a genuine happy sound that filled the room. Dr. Finch, watching the scene, felt tears prick at her eyes. It was a beautiful, full-circle moment. The old shoes, now cleaned and carefully preserved, became a silent memorial to James Thompson. Sarah and Mark decided to keep them, not as an everyday object for Leo, but as a symbolic reminder of loyalty, loss, and the extraordinary power of an animal's love. They planned to contribute to a local memorial in James's name, ensuring that his story, and Leo's part in it, would never be forgotten. The journey had been arduous, fraught with despair and unexpected twists, but from the curious gaze of a baby, the silent slumber of a loyal dog, and a pair of old shoes, a truth had emerged, bringing justice to a forgotten victim and profound healing to a family, both human and canine, who had unknowingly become the keepers of a powerful legacy. The whispers of loyalty had finally become a roar for justice, leaving everyone in tears, tears of grief for the lost, and tears of profound gratitude for the truth that had finally set them free. The conviction of Arthur Sterling brought a profound sense of closure. A heavy weight lifted from the collective conscience of the community. For Sarah, Mark, and particularly for Leo, it ushered in a new era of healing. The German shepherd, no longer burdened by the silent weight of a hidden crime, continued to recover with astonishing speed. The aggressive infection had been fully vanquished, and while his limp would forever be a testament to his ordeal, his spirit soared. Liam, ever the innocent, had witnessed his parents' relief and Leo's newfound vigor. He didn't grasp the grim details of murder or justice, but he understood joy. He saw Leo, once quiet and melancholic, now full of playful energy. He saw his parents smile more easily, and the house, once tinged with unspoken anxiety, now resonated with unadulterated happiness. Their bond, already strong, deepened with this shared journey of unexpected discovery and triumph. The old shoes, the very catalyst of their revelation, were treated with reverence. They were no longer Leo's constant companion, but they weren't discarded either. Sarah carefully cleaned them, preserving them in a glass display case placed on a shelf in their living room. They stood as a poignant memorial to James Thompson, a silent testament to his life, his love for his dog, and the enduring loyalty that had ultimately brought his killer to justice. They were a daily reminder of the extraordinary circumstances that had bound their family together. News of the trial's outcome, particularly Leo's role, continued to circulate. The story of the hero dog who had held a secret for decades, suffering silently until an innocent child's curiosity unearthed the truth, became an enduring local legend and a source of quiet pride for the town. Donations, once focused on Leo's medical care, now flooded in for animal shelters and cold case investigations. Inspired by the profound impact of Leo's tale, Sarah and Mark, deeply moved by the outpouring of support, decided to honor James Thompson's memory in a more substantial way. They worked with the local historical society to establish a small, quiet memorial garden at the edge of the old Thompson farm, near the very spot where James's remains had been found. A simple stone bench was placed there, inscribed with James's name and the words, "Remembered through loyalty?" It became a place of quiet reflection, not just for the family, but for anyone who wished to pay respects to the boy who had been forgotten, but never truly lost. Dr. Eleanor Finch, their veterinarian, became a close family friend. She continued to oversee Leo's follow-up care, often visiting simply to spend time with the now joyful German Shepherd. She marveled at his transformation, a powerful vindication of her belief in the profound intelligence and emotional depth of animals. She often brought Liam small animal-themed books, encouraging his burgeoning curiosity and his innate kindness towards creatures. Mrs. Agnes Gable, the elderly witness who had bravely come forward, also found a new lease on life. Relieved of the burden of her secret and lauded for her courage, she often visited Sarah, Mark, and Liam. She would bring freshly baked pies and regale Liam with stories of the town's history, her eyes often resting on Leo with a look of deep respect. She saw in Liam a reflection of James's innocent spirit, and in Leo, a testament to the enduring bonds that tie us all together. Life settled into a new, harmonious rhythm. Weekends were spent at the park, Leo chasing balls with Liam, their laughter echoing through the trees. Evenings were for quiet family time, Leo often resting his head on Liam's lap as Sarah read stories aloud. The past, once a heavy shadow, now felt like a chapter closed, its lessons learned, its justice served. Alara and Mark, in their quiet moments, often reflected on the extraordinary turn their lives had taken. They had adopted a rescue dog, hoping to give him a second chance, only to find that he had, in fact, given them a profound sense of purpose. Liam's innocent curiosity had been the spark, the first domino in a chain of events that had brought a murderer to justice and healed a decades-old wound. Leo, the silent hero, had found his true home, no longer clinging to the shoes out of desperate grief. He sought comfort in the warm embrace of his new family, his deep, contented sighs, his watchful gaze, and his joyful barks were a constant reminder of loyalty, resilience, and the power of love to bring truth to light. The whispers of the past had finally found their voice, bringing tears not of sorrow, but of gratitude, healing, and the overwhelming joy of a family made whole. Thanks for watching. If this incredible story of loyalty, a hidden truth, and an unexpected hero touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community for more inspiring tales. What was the most surprising moment for you in Leo's journey? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Your insights mean the world to us. Want to explore more stories of incredible animal bonds and justice served? Click here for our next video and discover the extraordinary in the everyday. The years that followed Arthur Sterling's conviction unfolded with a quiet grace, painting a vibrant canvas of life for Alara, Mark, Liam, and their beloved German shepherd. Leo, the raw pain of the past, the injustices endured, slowly transformed into a profound appreciation for the peace they had found. Their home, once just a house, became a true sanctuary, brimming with the warmth of unconditional love and the quiet hum of healing. Leo, no longer haunted by the silent burden of James Thompson's fate, thrived. His physical therapy continued for months, gradually restoring strength to his once injured leg. While a faint limp remained a permanent reminder of his bravery, it became a part of his unique charm, a testament to his indomitable spirit. He moved with a new lightness, his eyes, once tinged with an inexplicable sadness, now shone with pure joy. His days were filled with the simple pleasures he deserved: long walks in the park, chasing balls with Liam, and endless, contented naps and sunbeams, often with Liam curled up beside him. The old shoes, now revered artifacts, found their permanent place in the glass display case in the living room. They were no longer Leo's direct source of comfort, but rather a silent, poignant memorial to James Thompson. Sarah and Mark would often find themselves gazing at them, reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events they had set in motion. They were a constant, tangible reminder of the power of animal loyalty, the enduring nature of truth, and the incredible role an innocent child's curiosity had played in bringing justice after decades. Liam, growing taller and wiser with each passing year, developed an almost preternatural bond with Leo. He saw Leo not just as a pet, but as a silent, wise companion who had a story only they truly shared. He would whisper secrets into Leo's ear, confide his childish worries, and Leo would respond with gentle nudges, soft whines, and a watchful gaze that seemed to understand everything. Their play was a joy to behold, a blur of motion and laughter. Reflecting a friendship that transcended words, the memorial garden at the edge of the old Thompson farm became a cherished place for them. Sarah and Mark maintained it meticulously, planting flowers that bloomed in vibrant colors each spring. The stone bench, inscribed with James's name and the powerful words, "Remembered through loyalty," drew visitors from far and wide. Inspired by the story that had captured the nation's heart, it ensured that James Thompson was not merely a name in a cold case file, but a soul remembered, his quiet life and tragic end serving as a poignant lesson in the enduring fight for justice. Dr. Eleanor Finch remained an integral part of their lives. Her initial professional curiosity had evolved into a deep personal affection for the family, and especially for Leo. She often cited Leo's case in veterinary conferences, highlighting the profound psychological and physical impact of unresolved trauma on animals, and the remarkable capacity for healing when truth and peace are found. She became an informal consultant for shelters, advocating for deeper psychological assessments for rescue animals with unusual behaviors. Mrs. Agnes Gable, now frail but with a twinkle in her eye, became a beloved fixture in their lives. She would still bake her famous apple pies for Liam, her stories of the old town enriching the boy's understanding of his community's history. She held a special reverence for Leo, often saying, "That dog, he brought the truth out of the ground. He's a living saint. That one?" Her courage in coming forward, ignited by the quiet presence of a loyal dog, had been a turning point in her own life. Replacing her fear with a newfound sense of purpose and pride, the shadow of Arthur Sterling faded, replaced by the light of the justice he had finally received. His name became synonymous with greed and deceit, a stark contrast to the legacy of loyalty and love embodied by Leo and the Thompson family, the wealth he had amassed, partially through the very land he murdered for, was now subject to legal proceedings that would see it redistributed, some of it even contributing to local animal welfare initiatives and cold case funds. A poetic form of restitution, Alara and Mark, in the quiet evenings after Liam was asleep, would often sit together, holding hands, reflecting on the profound journey they had undertaken. They had started with a quiet, unassuming life, then stumbled upon a mystery hidden in the heart of a gentle German shepherd. That mystery had led them down a path of darkness, uncovering a decades-old murder, but it had also led them to an incredible understanding of resilience, loyalty, and the unexpected ways destiny weaves its intricate patterns. Their family was a testament to these truths. Leo, sleeping soundly at the foot of Liam's bed, was no longer just a rescued dog. He was a silent, living monument to enduring love. Liam, with his innocent wonder, was a reminder that even the smallest hands could unearth the greatest truths. And Alara and Mark, once strangers to the profound depths of such a story, were now its guardians, forever changed by the whispers of loyalty that had once slept with a pair of old shoes. Their story wasn't just a tale of justice, it was a celebration of the profound connections that shape our lives, reminding us that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are found in the most unexpected places, guided by the silent, unwavering beat of a loyal heart. Thanks for watching. If this incredible story of loyalty, a hidden truth, and an unexpected hero touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community for more inspiring tales. What was the most surprising moment for you in Leo's journey? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Your insights mean the world to us. Want to explore more stories of incredible animal bonds and justice served? Click here for our next video and discover the extraordinary in the everyday. The years that followed Arthur Sterling's conviction unfolded with a quiet grace, painting a vibrant canvas of life for Sarah, Mark, Liam, and their beloved German shepherd. Leo, the raw pain of the past, the injustices endured, slowly transformed into a profound appreciation for the peace they had found. Their home, once just a house, became a true sanctuary, brimming with the warmth of unconditional love and the quiet hum of healing. Leo, no longer haunted by the silent burden of James Thompson's fate, thrived. His physical therapy continued for months, gradually restoring strength to his once injured leg, while a faint limp remained a permanent reminder of his bravery. It became a part of his unique charm, a testament to his indomitable spirit. He moved with a new lightness, his eyes, once tinged with an inexplicable sadness, now shone with pure joy. His days were filled with the simple pleasures he deserved: long walks in the park, chasing balls with Liam, and endless, contented naps in sunbeams. Often with Liam curled up beside him, the old shoes, now revered artifacts, found their permanent place in the glass display case in the living room. They were no longer Leo's direct source of comfort, but rather a silent, poignant memorial to James Thompson. Sarah and Mark would often find themselves gazing at them, reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events they had set in motion. They were a constant, tangible reminder of the power of animal loyalty, the enduring nature of truth, and the incredible role an innocent child's curiosity had played in bringing justice after decades. Liam, growing taller and wiser with each passing year, developed an almost preternatural bond with Leo. He saw Leo not just as a pet, but as a silent, wise companion who had a story only they truly shared. He would whisper secrets into Leo's ear, confide his childish worries, and Leo would respond with gentle nudges, soft whines, and a watchful gaze that seemed to understand everything. Their play was a joy to behold, a blur of motion and laughter, reflecting a friendship that transcended words. The memorial garden at the edge of the old Thompson farm became a cherished place for them. Sarah and Mark maintained it meticulously, planting flowers that bloomed in vibrant colors each spring, the stone bench, inscribed with James's name and the powerful words, "Remembered through loyalty," drew visitors from far and wide, inspired by the story that had captured the nation's heart. It ensured that James Thompson was not merely a name in a cold case file, but a soul remembered. His quiet life and tragic end serving as a poignant lesson in the enduring fight for justice. Dr. Eleanor Finch remained an integral part of their lives. Her initial professional curiosity had evolved into a deep personal affection for the family, and especially for Leo. She often cited Leo's case in veterinary conferences, highlighting the profound psychological and physical impact of unresolved trauma on animals, and the remarkable capacity for healing when truth and peace are found. She became an informal consultant for shelters, advocating for deeper psychological assessments for rescue animals with unusual behaviors. Mrs. Agnes Gable, now frail but with a twinkle in her eye, became a beloved fixture in their lives. She would still bake her famous apple pies for Liam, her stories of the old town enriching the boy's understanding of his community's history. She held a special reverence for Leo, often saying, "That dog, he brought the truth out of the ground. He's a living saint. That one." Her courage in coming forward, ignited by the quiet presence of a loyal dog, had been a turning point in her own life. Replacing her fear with a newfound sense of purpose and pride, the shadow of Arthur Sterling faded, replaced by the light of the justice he had finally received. His name became synonymous with greed and deceit, a stark contrast to the legacy of loyalty and love embodied by Leo and the Thompson family. The wealth he had amassed, partially through the very land he murdered for, was now subject to legal proceedings that would see it redistributed, some of it even contributing to local animal welfare initiatives and cold case funds. A poetic form of restitution. Alara and Mark, in the quiet evenings after Liam was asleep, would often sit together, holding hands, reflecting on the profound journey they had undertaken. They had started with a quiet, unassuming life, then stumbled upon a mystery hidden in the heart of a gentle German shepherd. That mystery had led them down a path of darkness, uncovering a decades-old murder, but it had also led them to an incredible understanding of resilience, loyalty, and the unexpected ways destiny weaves its intricate patterns. Their family was a testament to these truths. Leo, sleeping soundly at the foot of Liam's bed, was no longer just a rescued dog. He was a silent, living monument to enduring love. Liam, with his innocent wonder, was a reminder that even the smallest hands could unearth the greatest truths. And Alara and Mark, once strangers to the profound depths of such a story, were now its guardians, forever changed by the whispers of loyalty that had once slept with a pair of old shoes. Their story wasn't just a tale of justice. It was a celebration of the profound connections that shape our lives, reminding us that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes are found in the most unexpected places, guided by the silent, unwavering beat of a loyal heart. Thanks for watching. If this incredible story of loyalty, a hidden truth, and an unexpected hero touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community for more inspiring tales. What was the most surprising moment for you in Leo's journey? Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Your insights mean the world to us. Want to explore more stories of incredible animal bonds and justice served? Click here for our next video and discover the extraordinary in the everyday.